Paul Maurice wrote Tableaux de Provence, which translates to Pictures of Provence, written for alto saxophone and accompanied by orchestra. Provence is a region of France with hills that bind the Mediterranean Sea to the Alps. Because this region is in the southeast of France, the culture is not only representative of French people, but also retains Mediterranean influences. French artists had always romanticized this region, and after World War II, new art styles began, and while some artists went more abstract, some started a new revival of neoclassical. Many pieces were made about Provence due to its irresistible country lifestyle. Paule Maurice and her husband owned a villa in Provence and spent summers there, so much of her work was inspired by the culture. Paule Maurice composed the Tableaux de Provence while teaching at the National Superieur de Musique de Paris from 1945 to 1955. She wrote this piece for her close friend and saxophone virtuoso Marcel Mule. Paule Maurice was not comfortable writing for woodwinds since she was primarily a piano player, so she gave Mule the manuscript and asked him to indicate what articulations he saw fit. He gave his assistance and was later asked to play in the first recording of the piano reduction version in 1957. When writing the tableau, many historical musical events related to the saxophone occurred. Famous jazz saxophonist Charlie Parker died in 1955. Composers started writing for saxophone because of Marcel Mule's ability. And the Selmer Company, which is based in Paris, released the Mark VI saxophone in 1954, which became one of the most sought-after instruments. Tableaux de Provence was performed by Jean-Marie Landex with the Orchestra Sinfonica Brestos, which was the first time this piece was performed by an orchestra on December 9, 1958. Now the work is usually accompanied by the piano reduction. The piece consists of 5 movements. Side note, I'll be saying the English translations of these because my French is horrible. Okay, here we go. Frandole of Young Women. Song for My Love or Beloved. The Bohemian Woman or the Gypsy. A Sight of the Soul for the Acclamps. And lastly, the Bumblebee. Each of these have something to do with or a known aspect of Provence. However, this project will focus on movements 2 and 3. In the key of D major, this movement is a simple A-B-A prime form, and not as vigorous or technical compared to the other movements. However, the melody brings forth an emotional power. Dynamically, the melody stays at piano through most of the piece, during which the saxophone's motion throughout gives a push and pull as the melodic lines tend to start in a higher register, then descend to the middle range of the horn, then back up to a high sustaining note. The mezzo forte signifies a distinct change as the saxophone is now in B. In measures 15 through 16, on the E of 1, a 16th note run begins and ends with a dotted quarter note, then with a decrescendo, a descending 16th note run into a dotted half note. There is a ritardando molto at the end of 16, which seems like an odd place to slow down. However, the piano has an important segment. Here, the piano is higher than the saxophone to really emphasize measures 16 and 17. The chords are a 5-4-2, a 6-4-2, a 2, a 1, a major 4, and then into a 5, ending on a half cadence. It is a rhythmic callback to the guitar tuning theme the piano plays as the piece transitions into A prime. Maurice wrote this movement as a serenade, which is a musical composition made in someone's honor. The image that comes to mind is a singer with a lute, singing a love song outside to the recipient who's listening from a balcony. However, the saxophone represents the singer in this case. In order to have the saxophone act as a voice, Maurice wrote slurs to mimic the delicate attributes in his serenade. Parts of the melody line have some slightly unusual melodic tendencies, with chromatic passing tones, neighbor tones, escape tones, and chromatic non-harmonic tones. It adds some more texture into this piece and accents certain beats. In section A, the melody is notated where the words should be sung, with new ideas beginning on beat 6, in the way lyricists use to make sure that the downbeat of the next measure has the important word. It requires the performer to be delicate and understand how singers shape phrases to make the movement's emotion come through. In the program notes, Maurice said, "Chanson pour mamie" opens with notes based on guitar tuning pitches. This idea makes for a non-typical piano part. Even the notes E, A, D, G, B are each notes of the guitar strings. It starts in the lower octave on an A and ends in the higher register on a G. In measures 5 through 8, the piano plays a D dominant chord in arpeggios, and later in measures 9 through 11, again the same occurs, but starting on a minor 5, 6, 5, and then chromatically modulates into A flat major, then goes into a minor 6, 4, 3, and again modulates into G flat major. These arpeggios mimic the way which a guitarist picks and how seamlessly the keys can change. Then transitioning into the start of phrase B, the piano plays a syncopated rhythm with rolls, like a guitar strumming chords. Minor 3, 6, 5, minor 4, 4, 2, and a major 5, and back onto a 1, 6, 4, ending on an IAC cadence. This theme comes back and ends on a perfect authentic cadence to complete the movement. On to movement 3. Paul Maurice's program notes give some background on what this piece emulated. La Bohemienne is a strongly emphasized rhythm expressing the fiery temperament of the gypsy people. The saxophone models the style of a dancing gypsy, fast and intense, and having a wildness to it, with syncopated rhythms, ornamentations, and melodic minor scales. Compared with other movements, this feels raw and unpolished, similar to a traveling nomad. In the original manuscript, Maurice puts accents on the first beat of every measure to mimic the hit of a tambourine in the gypsy dances. Subsequent publications of the work have omitted that articulation. Not much is known why this was done. La Bohemienne has 5 different sections, starting with an A to an A prime, to B, to C, to D, to E, to an A double prime, and ending with F. The piano has both hands starting in the lower octave, immediately changing the tone from a light French sound to a darker and more energized work. One hand plays eighth notes on a G and C, like the accompanying instruments for a dance, while the other hand plays 16th note ornamentations. Then the melodic line then provides chordal accompaniment till measure 22. The piano stays on a minor 1, and furthermore is in the melodic minor. Also, the chords have ninths and 13ths in them, a common French musical attribute. Entering into the C section, the key switches from C minor to G minor as the main melody in the saxophone emerges. Measures 27 through 31 stay on a minor 1 with a C sharp added to create some dissonance. Maurice throughout the piece adds many flourishes, such as grace notes and quintuplets. The chaotic rhythms seem misplaced yet stimulates the idea of a dancing gypsy. Once into D, the melody is given to the piano. It is the exact melodic line copied, only the piano part has the melody twice, just octaves apart. Now the saxophone gets to accompany the piano. It cannot play chords, but it gives a steady eighth note pulse to help subdivide. Maurice even puts some non-chord tones in measure 37 and 38. They are appoggiatura. Then a call and response happens between the two. The saxophone plays descending sextuplets starting on an F at forte, and 2 measures later, the piano follows suit. Again, the same F major descending scale is played, only this time it is at piano. Then, the piano has a small transition into A double prime. From A double prime to the end, the piece is now in C minor, and the saxophone is in control of the melody. While the piano is there to provide subdivision and chordal accompaniment, the saxophone contrasts that with quarter notes, eighth notes, 16th notes, triplets, and 32nd notes. This section is so unlike any other movement because of the technical aspect, and the bold rhythms at 132 beats per minute can easily become unclear. Tableaux de Provence is one of the most influential works for classical saxophone, although there is not much information kept on Paule Maurice and the creation of her work. Over her lifetime she made over 50 compositions, yet today there are only around 20. There is quite a bit of misinformation about her life and creation of the tableau on websites like Wikipedia, RLM, and the Oxford Music Online Dictionary, and even in CD liner notes, most notably from the New Jersey Wind Ensemble in 2007. Most authors tend to forget about her when writing books about female composers, and her underrepresentation as a composer can be traced back to the fact that she is a woman. Maurice's husband, Pierre Lantier, was a fellow composer at the National Superior de Musique de Paris. At this point in time, it was very uncommon for women not to take their husband's last name. The two worked together, and Pierre boasted about his wife's ability. He did not want people to see his name and think just because she was married to him that people should listen to her compositions. Maurice paved a way for future female composers, directly suffering from the sexist manifestations. Maurice chose to live as an independent and strong example of what lies in store for women of music. Over the past decade, many professional classical saxophonists have brought her work out of obscurity with recordings, making the tableau again recognized. Paule Maurice's Tableaux de Provence explains what these movements are supposed to do, presenting a picture of Provence, but more specifically, Maurice's pictures and feelings towards the special region in southern France.